everyone. We're waiting a few minutes to the hour at 9 o'clock. Appreciate everyone for joining. Today is the inaugural 2024 Protect Us Kids Safe Futures Conference. We are extremely excited to actually be able to introduce our amazing keynote speaker today, Dr. Stephany Powell. Dr. Powell role as a chief educator and senior advisor, she has a deep-seated commitment to combating human trafficking through education and advocacy. And her organization, Positive Change Consultants, fosters positive change by her contributions to policy development and public engagement. Dr. Powell will be presenting and focusing on key topics that we think all of you should be aware of as it pertains to protecting our children online, as well as some of the things that individuals collectively, as well as communities, should be looking towards in terms of protecting our children, not just here within stateside, but globally around the world. And with that, I will pass it off to Dr. Powell.
Thank you so very much. I'm going to share my screen. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I know people are from all over the world, so I know there are different parts of the day in which you are watching this. Vida, I want to thank you so much for inviting me and for doing this because it's so extremely important. And so I am going to talk about, there's things that I really want you guys to focus on as you attend this conference, especially as it pertains to child safety. Because what we do know is that by having either phones or computers in our homes, we know that we are now inviting strangers to come in, and some of those strangers are ill-intentioned. And so we just need to know how to protect ourselves, even as adults, as well as kids. So quickly, I'm going to talk about my journey and how I actually got here. I was a school teacher. I'm from Los Angeles, and I live here now. And I was a school teacher for several years, elementary school teacher. From there, I went to LAPD and became a sergeant. And my last assignment, I was a sergeant in charge of a vice unit. So we dealt with everything from prostitution to illegal bars, liquor stores. But it was through that that really started my journey when I met a young lady who we had arrested several times for prostitution. And this one day, I hadn't seen her in a while, and she was standing on the street, and she had to have been about 8 months pregnant. So I said to the guys, I said, there's no way she could be working. And so keep in mind, the story is from, oh my God, several years ago. I did 30 years. Then so that was when we were still arresting a lot for prostitution. There's been a paradigm shift since then. But anyway, so she was working, and we made the arrest. And right around the time of booking, I was with her because she was pregnant. She had to see the doctor in the jail. So we're in the jail, and where they're going to have to do an exam. So the reason why they have to do an exam because they're booking a pregnant woman. And so she and I were talking, and her pimp was in jail. And I asked her what she was having. She told me she was having a girl. And then she took my hand and placed it on her belly because she wanted me to feel the baby move. And at that very moment, it was so surreal. I felt as though we were no longer there in jail, but what we were doing, we were both experiencing a life. And I felt the baby move, and it was at that time, although there was always this part in me as far as being a police officer, but it really honed it in for me that the two of us were both women experiencing feeling a life. And the bottom line was she was really no different than me. Fast forward, I see her about 6 months later. We were, my unit and I were in a fast food restaurant. She came in with a stroller and she said she was so glad to see me. She was on her way down to the station to show me her baby. And she had a beautiful little girl. And she told me she was out of the life based on our conversation. And she found an organization to be able to help her out. And it was because of that story that when I retired from law enforcement, I became and now an advocate for victims of human trafficking. And so that's what became my journey to be able to come full circle using my knowledge in law enforcement to teach law enforcement officers how to have a more victim-centered approach when working with victims of human trafficking. It set off my journey as it pertains to working with policy that would help victims of human trafficking. And so from there, I was executive director of an organization that assisted victims, adult victims of human trafficking. From there, I went to the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, became a vice president, in which I continue the fight. And I do private contracting now, and I continue the fight, not only for human trafficking, but online safety. And I do this on an international basis with law enforcement agencies. So I wanted to share that journey with you because once you get involved in this, in any way, you will be latched on in order to be able to do the fight. So when we talk about online safety, the question becomes, why do we need to know? Why do we even need to know what it's about? And the reason why we need to know, because more and more children interact online with one another around the world. So this means the online environment really needs to be monitored for safety. So just like we make sure of the safety of children in the parks and playgrounds, we need to do that online as well. It's very important. So ensuring online safety, we know it's challenging. It's a challenging endeavor because technology is constantly changing. So regardless of whether you're in law enforcement or you are a parent, we have to stay abreast of what is going on in this challenging environment of technology. Adults have to stay on top of learning and about new platforms and understanding the unique dangers that these platforms can pose, regardless of whether you are in a rural community or in a marginalized community. It's extremely important because sometimes, in particular, those children will be uh, uh, targets because there are those that feel that rural and marginalized communities are the most vulnerable because they may not know as much about technology. Be it true or untrue, the bottom line is if that is the perspective of predators, then it's extremely important that we all pay attention. So let's look at some stats real quick. A researcher from Northwestern University analyzed 462 accounts of teenage girls pertaining to, sorry about that, pertaining to how they see online. Sorry about that, you guys. Um, a researcher from Northwestern University analyzed 462 accounts from teenage girls pertaining to their exchange of nude or semi-nude photographs. Two-thirds reported struggling, and this is the interesting part of this. They struggled in terms of whether, when, and to whom they should send photographs. So they thought about it. A 2017 survey found that 1 in 8 participants had been targets of the distribution or threat of distribution of sexually graphic images without their consent. Women were significantly more likely to have been targets this abuse compared to men. But what we need to really understand about this is that men and boys are targeted and are victims as well. It just happens that we see it more so with women and girls. Here's another one. Online child exploitation and abuse is reaching epidemic proportions and threatens the safety of children globally. In 2023, the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children, often known as NCMEC, received more than 36 million cyber tip line reports of suspected online child sexual exploitation and abuse, a 360% increase over the number of reports received 10 years ago. There's a significant uptick. According to the 2023 We Protect Global Threat Assessment, the volume of child sexual abuse material has increased globally by 87% over the past 5 years. So it is increasing. According to the 2020 UNODC Global Report on Trafficking of Persons, 72% of the sex trafficking victims in the world are girls under the age of 18. We've got to protect our children. And so even though I use statistics, I see them just as a starting point of an understanding. Because remember this, keep this in mind. The only reason why we have statistics is because somebody has reported it in some type of system, regardless of whether it's law enforcement or child protection. So think about the number of unreported things. So we really don't know what the stats are, but if these stats are just large enough in terms of us to have a wow perspective of it or clutching our pearls, imagine what the unreported numbers are added to the numbers we already know. So this is a global problem, it's a global societal problem. And let's look at, and I also am a professor at the University of Southern California, so in sociology. So I'm going to give you a really quick sociology lesson. And that is as it pertains to cultural lag. And you'll see why this is important. So you see this old computer, right? And this is not a computer from the 1800s. This is a computer from our generation that we're in now. So the term cultural lag refers to the notion that culture takes time, culture takes time to catch up with technological innovations, and resulting in social problems that are caused by this lag. So remember when drones came out? The technology was there, but there were no laws saying how we should use drones. The same thing is happening with social media platforms and technology. The adoption of new technology often brings about significant changes in the way that people live and work. But it can take time for people to adapt to these changes. And also it's going to take time for policies to come in to be able to catch up with technology. And so as a result, it really does impact our social norms and our social values in terms of catching up. And that's what we're seeing right now. So the widespread adoption of the internet has changed the way people communicate, access information, but it's also led to debates about online privacy and the role of social media in society. And so that's why we have these issues. And I'll give an example of, we use the term self-generated child sexual abuse. And that is because we have no other term to be able to use, but it's a misleading term. Children are not responsible for their own sexual abuse. Until we can come up with a better term, we still use the term of self-generated, but we really need to understand that children are not responsible for their own sexual abuse. And so again, we use this term until we come up with another term. And that term is also specifically used in law enforcement or recognized in law enforcement sectors. You're going to learn, I'm sure, about image-based sexual abuse. Image-based sexual abuse is the creation, theft, extortion, threaten, or actual distribution or any use of sexualized or sexually explicit material without the meaningful consent of the person depicted. And so we know that children, unfortunately, are extorted or sextortion, where someone will ask for an image, and it could be another child their age. They will unfortunately share that image, but once we push send, we lose complete control over what happens with that image. And as a result, non-consensual recording of such images or videos now, unfortunately, are shared across the internet. We also sometimes have to deal with a non-consensual recording of images, where someone will put a camera in a bathroom setting, or what we call upskirting, where using stairs and someone is taking pictures underneath skirts. So as a result of that, it creates pressuring or harassing of someone once these videos come out, because they'll say, I have these videos of you. If you don't send me more videos, then I will share the ones that I have. And of course, unfortunately, the child will share more videos of themselves, not telling the parent what's going on, because of course they're scared, because they also feel that they've done something wrong. And these images are widely shared. And unfortunately, you'll have children that will commit suicide as a result. So when you talk about online predators, these are going to be adults that they meet offline, and some of them are in clusters in which they're teaching each other how to do it, how to seduce or manipulate youth on social media. And so also, unfortunately, it's not just strangers, but it's friends, intimate partners, it's family members who may take pictures non-consensually and share them with others to be able to humiliate or retaliate against their victims. Online predators make threats when you no longer want to chat with them, meaning, and this also is happening to adults as well, and then start forcing maybe in-person meetings by issuing threats to harm family members and friends, threatening to share private information that you don't want out. Or they form a relationship with your child or friendship with your child, where now the child has an emotional bond to them, and they don't want to get them in trouble, so therefore they don't tell. So types of online abuse, and you're going to hear more about it. So I'm just giving you tidbits so that you will really key into all the things that you're going to be learning today. So some of the signs of online abuse are similar to abuse in and of itself. So when we talk about emotional abuse, it's going to be any type of abuse that involves the continual emotional mistreatment of a child. And this can happen on and offline, because they may make the contact online, but they will encourage the child to meet them offline. And this is where grooming comes in. So this is when the person will build a relationship with the child and for the purposes to sexually abuse them, exploit, or traffic them. Children and young people can be groomed online or face-to-face by a stranger, but remember, this also includes people that they know. Sexting. Sexting is when when someone shares sexual, naked, or semi-naked images or videos, or sends sexual messages. It's online abuse. If a child or young person is pressured or coerced into creating or sending these type of images, we need to make sure that we become part of these statistics by reporting to law enforcement or the entities that are able to help to stop this. Sextortion, I already talked about this. Again, this is when, and oftentimes victims don't even know that their images have been shared. Sometimes other people will tell them. In other instances, sharing or threat of sharing intimate images are used again to exploit victims. Very often the victim's personal, and this is where it can become dangerous, because oftentimes the victim's personal details such as their emails, their address, social media accounts, phone numbers, home addresses, are posted along with the image. And so this puts them into an increased risk of being harassed, stalked, both online or offline. And so this becomes a very serious situation. Sexual abuse, of course, we know is when a child or young person is forced or tricked into sexual activities. Again, this can happen online, offline, rural, marginalized communities, in which a child then becomes forced to make, view, or share child abuse images or videos, or take part in sexual activities on with conversations online. And so cyberbullying, and again, these are just tidbits that as you are going about your day-to-day on this wonderful conference, these are things that you're going to latch onto. And so we know that bullying is the use of technology to harass, threaten, or embarrass or target another person. And these online threats can be very mean and very aggressive and very rude, and can include rude texts, tweets, posts, or images. And unfortunately, this could be so damaging to a person, which will cause them to want to take their own life. And so, as a result of cyberbullying, that's why we really need to go after the social media platforms that they do a better job of monitoring. And so, when things are reported, that they get taken off. There have been instances where parents have called, and we had one particular instance when I was working for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, in which a parent had begged for it to be taken down. It took them 2 weeks to take it down. And as a result, that child's image was shared over 1 million times. And we were just lucky enough that the child told as soon as they found out. So it's so extremely important that we deal with this. Collaboration. Collaboration is so important. We as private citizens need to collaborate with nonprofit organizations, law enforcement, policymakers, because this is what helps to move the needle in order to protect our children. Unfortunately, we have to be very vocal in terms of making a stop in order for there to be laws. You know, unfortunately, in order to make things stop, there have to be laws. Remember, I talked about cultural lag. We still have a huge gap. We still have a huge gap in terms of having the laws that are needed, because there's so much money in technology. There's so much money in these social platforms that they are very slow in terms of pulling that trigger in protecting our children. So we are the ones that really need to take the bull by the tail and really continuously be vocal in this. So one thing that I found and I thought was quite interesting, that the Department of Homeland Security has launched a program called Know to Protect. And it's a public awareness campaign that helps to combat online child exploitation and abuse. And they are collaborating with public and private sectors. So I'm just going to give you an example of some. So Google, and trust me, when I was with the National Center of Sexual Exploitation, and remember during COVID, and they were giving out the computers to the schools, well, they were giving them out without filters. So now this opened the world for children to be able to use those Chromebooks and be able to find pornography sites. And we know with the algorithms, once you go start looking at something, the technology will start to suggest more. We went to Google and we had to have many conversations with them in order to, when they give out those Chromebooks, to actually put filters in. So I find it interesting and so this is how the needle gets moved, that now Google is donating add credits to for Google Display, YouTube, and Google Search, which will bolster the reach of the campaign in order to educate as many young people, parents, educators, and community leaders as possible on signs of child sexual exploitation. So they are helping with DHS in order to get the word out about education, but we need to stay on Google to do more. Roblox is another one because we know that there are problems with these as it pertains to having a platform where our children are not protected. So Roblox will now display in-game billboard advertisement for users on its platforms. And these advertisements will share helpful tips for gamers because we know that through these gaming systems, predators are there for human trafficking purposes as well as sexual abuse. But they are going to share helpful tips for gamers on internet safety and best practices. In the future, Roblox will work with Node to protect to develop in-game immersive experiences, such as building characters from the campaign's iGuardian training program. So even though they are in collaboration with DHS, we need them to do more to protect our kids. Major League Baseball is also in collaboration with DHS through MLB, together with CSR platforms. They are going to display Know to Protect physical advertisement collateral such as posters, host venues for the 2024 MLB All-Star Weekend. They did this in July, and they too are trusted players as it pertains to youth safety. So if you go to DHS and look up Know to Protect, you'll see a lot more collaboration that's listed. There are also toolkits there as well in order to be able to, for you yourself, to not only learn how to protect your kids, but to also be able to teach your community as well. Boy Scouts of America will collaborate with Know to Protect to promote knowledge of sharing and empowerment for youth and parents. BSA will also facilitate Project iGuardian presentations for scouts and parents and explore developing a co-branding BSA patch in recognition of taking an in-person project iGuardian training at local and national levels. And as we know, Boy Scouts of America is international. So if your child is in a troop, please encourage their Boy Scout leaders to look into Know to Protect in order to give child safety online, child safety training to the parents as well as the Scouts itself. Law enforcement, again, another collaboration. Law enforcement officials across the country are joining this campaign. And it's not only the large law enforcement agencies, but also the small and rural law enforcement agencies as well. And so these law enforcement associations have committed to partnering with this campaign to share information and research with their members and community that they serve, to amplify the tools through their communication platforms and channels, amongst other activities, to collaborate with the Department of Homeland Security moving forward for further development training programs for state, local, tribal, territorial, and campus law enforcement across the country. So if you have or you know law enforcement agencies, please talk to them about joining if they have not done so so far, so that again, in order to get the word out into your communities. Our call to action: please pay attention to current laws, be an advocate, and show your support. Be there, show up. I just recently fought a bill 1414 here in the state of California, where right now, if you exploit or engage a child in commercial sex, it's a misdemeanor in the state of California. We fought and fought and fought, and now with the passing of SB 1414, our governor is about to sign it. It will now become a misdemeanor and will now become a felony for minor victims. Unfortunately, 15 and under. We wanted it for all minors, but again, moving the needle slowly. It's important to collaborate with local nonprofit organizations and law enforcement. We've got to push for policy change as it pertains to online safety. We need to perpetuate the change that we want to see. Collaboration of social media and tech can only happen because of our loud voices, but there's still work to be done. So the needle that I talked about in terms of collaboration with social media and tech, yeah, it's happening, but we've got to keep our voices up. Everything you learn today, take that knowledge and become an advocate. And so with that, I'm going to leave you with the words of William Wilberforce. And what he said to the English House of Commons in 1791, because he found the African slavery trade around the world to be so disturbing. And so I want you to take these words as you take part in this conference today. You may choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you did not know. So now that you know, take the actions necessary in order to keep our children safe. My name is Dr. Stephany Powell from Positive Change Consultants, and I'm so glad that you are here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take your knowledge and become the warriors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Powell. We are just so grateful for the amount of knowledge and wisdom and expertise that you have provided us today at Protect Us Kids, as well as with our audience. We will take some time for a brief break before we head into our next session. For those of you who are looking at this and may need to come back, just a reminder that this is being recorded, so you can always come back if you had to drop off, as well as understanding there are closed captionings available for you within the Zoom platform, so that you can also enjoy the full experience. But thank you so much, Dr. Powell. We look forward to partnering with you and continue working with you at Protect Us Kids, and we can't thank you enough.
Thank you so very much for inviting me and allowing me to serve.
Thank you. You take care.